Evening. I was going to say good evening, Vietnam, then, but I thought, no, I better not. Um, Good evening and welcome. Can people also on the radio please leave the comments if they got any comments or anything in the smaller box, not the bigger box, please, because we're having problems getting all the comments at the moment. We're just about to go live in 1 minute. Um, for the radio, but on here we're just having a quick chat, having a chat, and then we go live then both together. Um, so anyway, we got Robert Luther Smith. Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm all good.
Nope, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
My, yeah.
Thank you. I was kind of like flicking through all these pages and stuff, and all of a sudden you came up, and I thought, wow, and tell everybody about yourself.
Well, that's a lot. Well, I mean, in essence, I mean, I would never pretend to be anything other than I am. But I was just a kid from a middle class family. I look after my 102-year-old mother now, as I am sitting here now. She's in the other room. But I've been always very close to my family, but they're a business family. And so most of my needs in life were met. You're talking about the mid 60s to 1970. Of course, it was a big music time. I got an electric guitar. I started playing that. Although I play piano, truthfully. But I got a guitar. I had my mum's car. I had a Vox AC30, and I got knocks on the door saying, "Can you come and play in my band?" So it was just really one of those things that got me started in music. Was the
Okay. And
simple fact I had the resources.
what kind of band was that then? What kind of band was it?
Well, you're talking about 1970, so you had it started off really with all the Beatles and stuff like that. But at those times, if for professional gigs, there were thousands of gigs everywhere,
Yeah.
and you're talking about the early 70s, and the weekly wage for those that weren't there was £10 a week, and I was being offered £40 a gig. So you don't really turn that down when you're 17 or 18, do you?
No.
And the big thing was in Germany, because all the Americans were on the bases still. If you recall, there was conscription. So we'd put together a soul band, doing Knock on Wood and all that kind of stuff. And so we went out there. I mean, it was the summer '73, and
Yeah, yeah.
we were playing soul music, and all the guys were coming to watch, and they were just laughing their heads off at us, because we were doing "You Better Knock on Wood," and they were just laughing their heads off. And I was saying, "What's so funny about that?" And he said, "You don't know how to play soul, man. You just don't know how to do it." And they taught me how to play funky music. And that, for those that don't know, is about syncopation. I don't know how musical we are on this channel, but
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
syncopation, eh?
We are. Yes, we are.
Yeah, so syncopation is when you play the 16th note on the end of the bar. So it's dum dum jack dum dum jack dum dum. So they taught me how to play this on guitar, and as a result of that, I was just got endless gigs, because of course this is 73, 74, 75. You had Jive Talking, and you'd got the Stevie Wonder albums out, Superstition and all that kind of stuff. And so I was one of, ridiculously enough, one of the few English guitarists who knew how to play funky music. So that's how I mean, I love music anyway. I write music, and I've always, basically I'm a singer songwriter, but that's how it all kicked off. And one thing led to another. And it was just, I mean, in those days, there were just hundreds and hundreds of gigs. I mean, they were usually clubs. I mean, I like playing pubs and clubs, because, as they're saying on that Sky Live thing now at the moment, great playing in clubs. We got big time, and we played support to Hot Chocolate in 1982, which was, in fact, the biggest tour of its time. I think it was 54 dates. And that was the big thing. But when it gets into the big time, it all turns a bit, heavyweight and all this kind of stuff. It's not the same playing. If you're playing in big theatres, it's just not the same as playing clubs. And but I chose the clubs rather than the big stadiums, and I just made records. Still do. It's all on arthouserecords.co.uk, and I just wrote songs. I mean, that's what I like doing. And one thing I really wanted to do, and I noticed that Keith, because the one good thing these days is they have lots of documentaries about music.
Yeah.
And although I'm not a Rolling Stones fan as such, I think Keith Richard is really one of the great, I don't know what you call them, creatives in music business. Mick Jagger's obviously brilliant, we all know that. But Keith Richard is, and he was talking on one of these documentaries and saying they heard Chuck Berry playing rock and roll and they just wanted to know how to do it. And I was the same when funky music, because you got 1949, before 1949 it was probably boogie woogie, which is what Jules Holland tends to play these days. Then you got from 49, you got eventually 55, you got Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley, and then by the end of the 70s, largely Stevie Wonder, maybe it was, because you had that split, didn't you? You had Get Back, which was probably the first rockiest, I don't know, and you got Black Sabbath. But on the other hand, you also got Stevie Wonder, because I love Tony Iommi and all that stuff. But it was really dance music and disco, really. I mean, disco got trashed at the end of the 70s, I suppose. But dance, funky disco dance music, it was groovy, getting down and boogieing and all that kind of stuff. And as we can see, there are lots of people that turned out, and that's just how it was. We just played loads and loads of gigs, and wrote lots of songs, or I did anyway. And but eventually, trying to run a band, as much as I love the guys, trying to run a band is like trying to herd cats. It really is. Music.
Yeah, I was speaking to Alan Whitehead the other day, from Marmalade.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah, and he was telling me back then, when they were in the big time and they got everything going for them, and he was telling me that the trouble is, back then everybody loved the music, but if he played the music now, right, there is nothing. They won't play it on the radio station for some reason.
No, but well, I mean, my issue is, to be honest, is that when I started in 73, 74, there were dozens and dozens of publishing companies, record labels, dozens. And you could always find somebody else who would sign you and do some recording. And now it's all been bought up by Sony, Universal and Warner Brothers, or WEA, whichever it is. And so it's all been bought up by these very, very, very big. I mean, I'm not a corporate person. I don't like corporations. I mean, I know we've got to have some, but I think that with music, corporations just squash all the creativity flat. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I think we all agree. In fact, it was one of the few things that I agreed with. I mean, I don't agree with Bob Geldof and all that much, but he said, just recently on one of these, probably Sky Arts program, he said that we've reached the end of that period of incredible rock and roll, pop, whatever it was you want to call it, creativity that probably started in the mid-50s, if you like. And then, because you had to sing 7-inch records, didn't you? That was a new thing. And then you had albums, that was a new thing, and then the late 60s. I think drugs, because LSD and stuff like that wasn't illegal then, and so they were all tripping their heads off, and it was very creative. I don't think anybody can deny 67 to 73, 74, something like that. Fantastically creative. You got all these different sort of musics, whatever reason it came out. But once all the big corporations bought all the smaller companies up, the creativity level just slumped, And of
What
course,
do you think of today's music?
I think it's toothpaste music.
Right.
I think the big companies they just hired all these because toothpaste manufacturers are just bulk selling one particular straightforward product. And I mean, although I don't deny that the big companies are brilliant at world marketing, if you're just marketing toothpaste, I mean, someone's going to like it. I'm not disputing that for a minute. And people like consistency, for example. They like something, they know what they're going to hear. But it's all the crazy stuff that you get from the side that fuels all the main stuff. And you're just not getting. In fact, Joni Mitchell made a comment. It's been on. I've seen it quoted a couple of times. Is that when one of the corporate bosses said to her, they're looking for people who look good and have a cooperative attitude. And of course, the great artists, great creative people of any sorts don't have a cooperative attitude. You don't create things by being cooperative. You have to dispute things and look at things and reevaluate things all the time. And of course, now you, from the music you can hear now, it's just being pumped out, and that's why the sales are slumping, which they are. You know, obviously big corporations are selling back catalogue, which is the key thing. But for the small guy, the little guy, which I'm happy to be, makes life just very difficult because you need massive marketing funds to make any, you know.
How have you been coping with all the COVID?
Say again?
How have you been coping with all the COVID?
Personally, I haven't been bothered about it. I mean, as I said, well, as before we came on, I look after my 102-year-old mother, and I'm a bit of a bookish type anyway. So I'm quite happy sitting on my own reading a book and looking after my mother. Strangely enough, I wasn't really suited for. I didn't think to myself, "Wow, I want to be a singer," you know. And it just I got offered huge amounts of money to do it, so I did it, you know. So it hasn't been a problem for me, but I understand completely that it's been a problem for other people. And I think that what's interesting is that it's shown up the extent to which people need to socialize. Humans are social animals. They love to dance. There's no getting away from it. They just love to dance. And I don't think some of these scientists have the faintest idea why that is. You know, they just can't understand why human beings need to dance.
Oh no, I know.
But they do. And
There you go, there you go. Um, where do you get all the ideas about your music?
well, I mean, that is a great question because because for someone like me, it can make us go on for hours. But if I was to honestly say, um, although I didn't come from a musical family, you know, we're quite well off, and my grandmother loved music for the sake of it. She had a beautiful blues note that I learned to play piano on, and I just they put me on. They used, you know, in the good old days when you had a gramophone, they had all these box sets even then. So I started off with Beethoven and the standards. Apparently, 3 years old, I used to stand there and conduct in front of the gramophone. But I've worked this one out in 1960 when I was 5. My grandmother and I were listening to the radio, and I heard "Let's Twist Again."
All right.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. And why was I so interested in it? Because it was the first record that I'd heard that had a bass drum on it. So the thing about classical music is it doesn't have drums. It has percussion, but it doesn't have what we now call the backbeat. Boom, chat, boom, chat, boom, chat, boom, chat, boom, 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 right? It's simple as that. And that's what sort of piqued my interest, because I mean, I had piano lessons like, you know, every good boy and girl does, go and have their piano if they're that lucky. Poetry was a big thing for me. And then I suddenly realized that I could join the two together. And although I loved, what should we say, the early Beatles maybe, but it was really Tamla that caught my attention big time. And then 67, you had Hendrix and the Beatles. And I'm afraid that rather where I was going in one direction, that really pushed me off in that musical direction of the sheer creativity of the Beatles and Hendrix. And
What did you make you think of Pink Floyd?
I loved Devil, something at the gates of Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of Sid Barrett when they started, and I didn't really go with them into the David Gilmour phase. Although I like them. I mean, friends of mine played them all, Friday nights, Saturday nights, sitting around, and we used to, Pink Floyd and all the rest of it. But I was really into them when they started. David Gilmour's a great guitarist, it has to be said, but didn't move with that. No, I got into Steely Dan.
Steely Dan. Who's Steely Dan?
Well, there we are then, Steve. That's the essence of our discussion today. Will be Steely Dan. Are you reeling in the years? You know that.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Unfortunately, I've since met Elliot Randall because although I was deeply influenced by Hendrix, I was also influenced by Elliot Randall, who played that famous solo, if you remember on that song. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That song. So, but I mean, I was really Stevie Wonder, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, and Beatles big time. Hendrix big time. Crosstown Traffic was probably after Let's Twist Again. It was probably Crosstown Traffic of all the records, if people know that song by Hendrix, that got me really going. And so I just learned, and I must admit, although everyone loves David Bowie, I did learn how to play all the songs on Ziggy Stardust, for example. But
All right.
round here, Robert Fripp is quite. I met Robert through a female friend, so I sort of been influenced by all sorts of things, really, to be honest with you. That if you listen to one of my records, really, you can hear just about everything in it, I think, including Beethoven. So
I'll
I
tell you
was
what.
just,
I'll tell you what. When I was growing up, the first song I ever kind of listened to. Have a guess what it was?
when you were growing up.
Yeah, the first song I was listening to was this. It's another brick in the wall.
Try me
Pink Floyd.
again. Pink Floyd.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean Jeremy, and my oldest person I've known, like he loves Pink Floyd. So, and he's got I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I know there's been quite a lot of stuff on TV about Pink Floyd as well, just lately. But no,
yeah,
no, I mean, I mean, I know a lot about Pink Floyd anyway.
yeah.
But
I don't
it
like
was,
it now. It's just that song I like.
which one was that? Which one was it? Name
It's
it.
another brick in the wall.
Never.
It's another brick in the wall.
Oh, another brick in the wall. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was quite a shift from them. It was a good record. It is a good record. There's
Yeah,
no different doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, Floyd is like Rolling Stones. I mean, the Rolling Stones are fantastic, but they're not my favorite band. I mean, they're fantastic.
yeah.
But I got more into the West Coast, New York, Steely Dan kind of sound. I think they call it yacht rock now, don't they?
Yacht rock.
Yacht rock.
Probably,
Daryl
probably.
Hall,
I don't
Hall and
play it on my
Oates.
radio station.
it's it's called yacht rock now, and it's sort of there was a certain amount of Michael
Yacht rock.
Franks, yacht rock. It
Yeah,
is, I mean, and all that kind of Eagles. Joe Walsh, for example, if anybody knows who Joe Walsh is, he was in the Eagles now. He was a big influence on me. But I
yeah.
mean, that period, 767 to 73, 4, 5, and then really I did like the Bee Gees.
The Bee Gees. Yeah, I like the Bee Gees.
I
Mm,
thought a real standout track. I remember when I first heard it was Jive Talking. I mean,
yeah,
that really changed the musical sound. And that was that R.S. Ertigan, Arit Ertigan, wasn't it? Arif
yeah,
Ertigan. And it was, I heard the story because Barry Gibb just did that great songwriters thing on Sky Arts, I think it was. And it was Eric Clapton that told them to go and record at that. What album was that Clapton made? Something Miami Avenue or something, 1561 anyway. And it was about that time, about 1975, I think, when the whole thing really took off. Funky music really took off. Dance music, dancing, and we were just endlessly playing clubs where everybody was getting down and grooving, as we would now say.
Yeah.
But to my mother, God bless her, that was like completely new, you know. But you used to get lots of new dance crazes all the time back in the day. If you really from post-war period, you were always getting new music, dance crazes, whether it was Blondie and new wave, or it was disco or funk or new wave, you know, all that. But now you don't get any of that.
Do you remember the mods and the skinheads and everything?
Well, I was a bit young for that, but certainly the mods and the rockers. I mean, I think I grew up in St Albans, and there were lots of mods there.
Yeah.
They were seen as more educated and intellectual, dare I say, whereas the rockers were seen more like hard nuts or something. It was all rubbish anyway. But St Albans was definitely a mod's place. My brother was a mod, to be honest with you. Yeah,
Yeah, my
so.
brother was a skinhead.
Yes, I was never keen on the concept of skinhead. I was more of a long-haired kind of guy. But I mean,
When's
but
your
that
next?
was
When are you going out again gigging? When is your next gig?
well. To be absolutely honest with you, I stopped gigging in 2008 because of asthma.
Right. Okay.
There was nothing. I had a mass. I've had a standard relationship with asthma. It's the standard one where you get it when you're 7, and then you get acne when you're 17, and it. So I've had all the standard things, and in fact, it's not very good at the moment. Frankly, it's a bit bad. It's not bad. It's controlled. But 2008, I just couldn't have an hour and a half singing on stage all night. You know, it's a lot of work. People don't understand singing for an hour and a half. It's hard
Oh
work.
yeah. Okay. Of course it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I won't
But
like to do it.
no, I don't know. I mean, I was amazed that I did, but even then, I mean, I enjoy songwriting and I like recording. I mean, the one major thing that I wanted to learn was how to make R&B records, just like Keith Richard wanted to know how to make rock and roll records. And I
Yeah.
wanted to learn how to make because the thing that the English are particularly good, I think, at, or British, whichever you prefer, but particularly England, is ballads. You know, good. The Beatles wrote, and Paul McCartney. They wrote lots of great ballads. We're not. I suppose. Black Sabbath invented hard rock, if you like. That
Yeah.
came from England, I think. And I mean, I don't know whether it's true, but whether Get Back, if you've seen the Beatles playing that on top of the office building, I think that was probably the nearest thing we had to a rock song, probably. But then Black Sabbath took it away, and Deep Purple. So, but writing ballads is simple for me. What was difficult was writing an authentic R&B record. That how do you write those kinds of things? Which is what I still interest. I mean, was it 2015? I brought out that Hole in Your Heart, which I think is a pretty convincing version. But I've, you know, in terms of the pop thing, but really it was more just playing funky tunes. I was getting paid for it. But I do think music's like sport. You've got
Yeah.
to have the energy to do it. I mean, some people love the lifestyle of touring. I can't
Yeah.
say that I'm one of those people, gigging and all that. It's hard work, believe me.
So
And I
if
respect
somebody
people.
wants to listen to any of your music, where can they listen to it?
It's all on my website, arthouserecords.co.uk. Art
Brilliant.
House. Yeah, it's all on there. arthouserecords.co.uk. And there's a video of "Hole in My Heart" and all snippets of all my edits of all my songs on there. I've got a new album coming out now, but the obviously the lockdown prevented me working with Dave Thomas, my producer engineer guy.
Right.
So we kind of, but I used to just write albums and record them all in one go, but now we've kind of decided to change. We're just going to do one song at a time.
Right. Okay.
Because you need to really make that impact. You've got to make up your mind. And I think in this modern media age, but even then, to have any impact, you've got to spend millions of dollars in advertising. I mean, that was true in the early. I mean, it wasn't millions then; it was tens or well. Robert Fripp told me, and I've read elsewhere, that in the late 60s, you had to spend 12,500 quid to get on top of the pops and get a gig, start gigging. Now, if those that know, in the late 60s, 12,500 quid would buy you now a £1 million house.
Easy.
So it was big, it's always been big money, and all this kind of stuff. And really, in some respects, you just might as well put the money in the bank and just live off the money as put yourself through the misery of gigging.
Robert, thanks very much for coming on.
That's brilliant.
That has been brilliant. We'd love to have you come back and talk
Yeah.
to you about your, about Owen Yard and everything, about, and any other future stuff you got going. We love it.
Okay.
So, guys, don't forget to contact if you need to speak to Robert about anything. He's on Facebook. Don't forget to kind of like go to his website. Yeah, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Steve. Nice to talk to you.
Andrew,
Bye.
bye bye.